That's what's his name?
Okay, so we're not hearing you.
Little helper right here is going to walk around with a microphone so you can say your name, call sign, and they can hear it on the Zoom. So we'll start over here with Mr. Ed.
It's Ed, AG5 Delta Victor. Turn it up, Mark.
Worked fine on Zoom.
Ed, AG5 Delta Victor.
5 and 9.
Ken, KA5HFE.
Chris, K5JZN.
Barry, W5LHG.
Rodney, KF5UZA.
Bill, AE5F.
Bing, November India 5 Golf.
Hank, K5HHQ.
Jim, KG5BIM.
Ken, K8WGE.
Tom, KI5MNC.
Tom, KH6 AAA.
Ron, K5RJL.
Kilo, Golf 5, Sierra Whiskey.
Jim, AG40T.
Bill, WG5T.
Mike, N5 SOF.
James, KG5LXV.
John, KF5YET.
Bob, W5RG.
Dean, KK6 IPL.
Don, Kilo Delta 5 Uniform Golf Yankee.
Rick, KF5RYA.
Mike, KE5EQC.
Phil, KD5UGO.
Jeff, KJ7EFF.
Davey, KD5DTD.
Bubby, NE5Y.
Aubrey, KF5DJH.
David, KI5QMF.
Jeff, KD5CKK.
Denny, WA6DKD.
Mark, N5HZR.
Mike, KE5ASN.
Chris, KX5LC.
And I'm Mark, N5ACQ.
And I'm Wayne, KK5IO. Go Lee. Lee.
Oh, W5HLG Lee.
Peter.
Peter, N5UWY.
Howard.
Howard, Kilo Alpha 5, Echo Charlie X-Ray.
Glenn.
Oh, Glenn's gone. He's in the other room.
Oh, I don't know who K5DYB is.
Mike.
Mike.
Kilo Bravo 5, Hotel X-Ray Tango.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
There's Glenn's back now.
Okay, Glenn, introduce yourself.
This is KF5WIQ Glenn.
Okay, thank you.
You got
All right, Paul, N1HOB.
Okay, we got Paul now, N1HOB. Thank you, Paul. Thank you all for joining us. Okay, first off the agenda, do we have any new people here today? Do we have anybody that feel new? Yeah, we got one. Awesome. Thanks for coming. All right. So I'm going to turn it over real quick to Mike Rodney. He's going to say a word about the marathon that's coming up. I said Rockney. What is it? Rocky. Sorry.
Morning, Rocky.
Yeah, I am Mike Rocky. I KE5EQC, and I am the chairman of the Public Service Communication at the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon, and I'm here to beg. I don't know how else to put it. Out of curiosity, how many of you volunteered for the last marathon that we actually had? How many of you have volunteered for this one? For those who have thought about it, but not, I'm curious to know why people aren't volunteering this year. It's really short. Is it COVID? Is it, and it's going to be in October, so it's going to be cool.
Well, I may have conflicting.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure there are some things, but At this time last year, we had over 80, this time before the event. And this right now, we've got 63. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, I got a list of them here. Yeah, yeah. But for those of you who have helped before, I was curious as to why it's so slow this year. And I, don't know whether to blame it on COVID or my great personality. I don't know what it is.
We're all unsure about what's going on.
Yeah, right. In my club, Aeronautical Center, I've just got a text on the way down here from our president. We have been meeting at South Community Hospital there, 44th and Western. We got a notice from the fella that gets us into the rooms today that they're closing down the hospital to outside meetings. So we're going back to, virtual meetings. So anyway, the marathon is 2 days this year due to the COVID things messing everything up. October 2nd and October 3rd. And the 2nd is going to be a short day with just the 5K race and the kids race. It'll start, I think I saw where the races start at 7:30 in the morning. We need to be there by 6:15 on our locations, but I only need about 15 for Saturday, and I think I've got those pretty well covered. Sunday is the full race, the half marathon, and the relays, as well as the wheelchair race, which they have every year. And it's supposed to get started, I think, around 6:30 again. They're doing the start in waves to try to keep large numbers of people from gathering. So if you've ever been to the start of that marathon during a normal year, there is such a mass of people running down that street at the start line. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes to get everybody out of the corrals onto the course. It's quite an event to watch. Basically, what you need is a good handheld, probably with a few extra batteries to last you through the day. We usually are on site by 6 a.m., checked in with net control. And this year, with the way they're doing it, starting it in waves, in the past, it's finished up. We've been pretty much done with our hot wash and home by 3:15. This year, probably going to be just a little bit later. But if any of you are thinking about helping, I have a few cards here with the information on it. Also, it's on your website. And if you look for the Memorial Marathon, it's got the instructions on how to sign up. It's got the URL link to sign up with the proper code PSC 2021, which puts you automatically in the database for me. Some of the things that we need to staff: we've got a main net control. We've got a sag wagon net control. Sag wagons are, it's been explained to me that this was originally called snatch and grab. I don't know if that's the actual term, whatever it is. They go out, there are bands that'll hold, up to probably a dozen people. And they go out and pick up the people who can't finish the race for one reason or another. They're all cramped up, whatever it is. And some years they're kept real busy, some years they're not. We also have water and ice net control. We've got 5 water and ice trucks that go around and replenish all the water stations. And we've got 4 relays that we try to have about 3 to 4 to 5 radio operators stationed there. What we do there is we have a radio on a simplex frequency that is hooked to a PA system at the exchange point. And we have radio operators 100 yards or so, maybe a little more, up the course to shout out numbers of the people coming by, so that if you're in a relay and you hear your number, your team number, every team member has the same number. So you hear your number, you get ready to grab the chip from your partner and head on down on the course. I don't think we're going to have that many people at these relay stations this year. We've got 15 med tents all along the course. And we've tried to have at least 2 ham radio operators there. They're the ones that call for SAG wagons to come pick up runners who can't finish. They give out announcements of anything that comes over net control. They have to change the flag on the status of the weather and so on. It's an easy job, but it's an important job. As I said, we have 4 SAG wagons. We have 1 radio operator in each one. We do not drive those. They have their own drivers because we've got enough to do with trying to pay attention to the radio. We have someone in the lead vehicle that leads the full race until they get about to the last half mile, and then that vehicle pulls off and lets the runners fly on by to try to win the race. We've got a lead for the half marathon, which is, it splits off at a certain point, and it's usually a motorcycle with APRS and radio. We've got a start finish person. That's usually me right now. For the kids race, we have 4 or 5 ham radio operators that assist with the police and everybody down there at getting kids back with the right parents. We also have a backup communications unit, which we keep down by the finish line in case there's something that happens that if our net control were to go down or anything, we've got backup. Also, it's a place where the race director can go stop in there if they have to have a phone conversation with some other people where it's semi-quiet in there at least. And those are just the main ones that we have to try to fill. So we've been able to fill it. I've been in charge of it for about 5 or 6 years now, and we've had very good luck at getting enough people. The bare minimum that we can use for Saturday is about 60, and that's putting 1 at each med tent and so on. It's kind of difficult to get by with the bare minimums because every year I've got somebody, I'll check my email before I go down there at 3 on Sunday morning. And, there'll be somebody who has had to cancel. One year a guy said his wife was having a baby. Where's his, where's his priorities? I don't know. But, those things happen. And so, we need some extras in there. So if any of you can help us out, it's a fun day. Mark's helped us out. Those of you who have helped us out, talk it up among the people here and see if we can get a few more going.
It's a good thing for new folks. You don't need skills. You might talk about the paired up with somebody.
Well, and if we have enough people, what I've tried to do in the past is if you're a new person to the marathon, not necessarily just a new ham, but you haven't worked the marathon before, I will put you with an experienced person, Mark, or somebody similar, so that you're not out there going, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And even worse, I've got another new person with you who you're both trying to figure out what's. Yes. And we are putting together some job descriptions. They're brief. There's, as with everything we do in ham radio, you can try to set down everything that's going to happen, and it always happens a little bit different. We have to compromise here and there. But if you think you can help, please sign up. Go to the club website. I've also got a couple little cards here that have the club website on it. If any of you want to try to type all that in, it's kind of a pain in the neck. If you can do it from the club website, it's got the instructions. You have to put in a username. Many people use their call sign. You have to put in a password. Try to make it something you can remember. That always helps. I do, as chairman, I do have the option of helping someone change their password. I've had to do that a few times. Probably keeps the IT people at the marathon from having to do this 500 or 600 times a year. So the chairman have that option of doing it. I can't change most other things. I have had to help a few people get their registration done. We do have a couple of blind people that help us out. And what we usually try to do is put them where they can monitor a radio and help out that way. And that's one of them he called me up and said, can you get me registered? So while we're on the phone, I just put in everything. If you do register, one of the things it will do when you're completed is it will send you an email saying to verify your email. And all you gotta do is click on the thing and it shows up in my database that you have verified your email. So does anybody, one other thing we have at the hot wash afterwards, which we do near the start line downtown in the Marathon's, what they call their service center. It's kind of their warehouse. We will have a hot wash meeting. It usually lasts 35, 40 minutes. And we will have Jimmy John sandwiches for those who would like them. They're pretty good sandwiches. And also, again, this year, we have a tri-band handheld, 2 meter, 440, and 70 centimeter. Yeah. 220, excuse me. Yes. And we will be giving one of those away to be eligible. You sign up, register, show up for your assignment, and you're in the running. We will do a random drawing. You don't have to be present to win on that. Just have to do your assignment. So anybody have any questions that I can maybe answer? Yes, sir. The pre-meeting is September 21st. And it's supposed to be at Baptist Hospital. Not sure where that's going to be now. How many does this hold?
50.
We may be calling on you to see if we.
Or Galen might have to help us out there.
In more, they have another one. I'll check. Right now, as of this morning, that pre-meeting, what we do at the pre-meeting is we try to go over everything, anything new we bring up. We've got a PowerPoint presentation that we present and try to get everybody's questions answered, especially good for people who have not done this before with us. So, any other questions?
Mike,
Yes.
Lee on Zoom today, Lee Greenleaf, W5HLG. I can just tell everybody from doing this before, guys, this is so much fun. It truly is. I had a wonderful time. I worked a relay station, very, very important thing to do. But I will tell you, if you have any time, please think about it because you'll enjoy it more than you have any idea.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
And I can say, this is Howard, K5ECX. I'll second what Lee said. The last marathon we actually held was my first one. As soon as it was over, I was ready to sign up. I was bugging Mike, when can I sign up for the next one? Because it was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Can't hear you, Galen.
He's not muted, but he's got audio problems.
This is the best thing we got for Galen.
He can hear.
He can hear. That's not how it works. That's great. Nice knowing you.
Looks like he's writing out a note.
Check the chat.
Check your chat.
We do have City Hall for a meeting. So there you go. I volunteered him and he said.
Fantastic. I will be in touch with you.
Also the mobile command unit.
Yes.
I think we can get that many people in there.
Well, I think we're going to use it as our backup command post.
You have to be quiet when you're in it, though. No speaking. You have to hold
Yeah.
up signs like in the cone of silence.
Ask him if he got supper ready for us.
Did you hear that? Have you got supper ready for us when we're there?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I hope to see a few more names.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We appreciate it. I just wanted to say that my wife and I did this a couple of years ago and it was really good. I wish that I'd bought a chair because I did a lot of standing that day, did a lot of walking, but basically we worked a medical tent. And the people that work the medical tents, they know what they're doing. And and they needed something, they're on the cell phone anyway. We just care. It's kind of a backup. So it's a good deal. So I encourage it.
Wayne, can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's probably too bad, but I just wanted to say I apologize for not being there this morning. I got called away to work, and fortunately it was a problem that I hadn't seen before, but it was pretty easily solved. And so anyway, hello to everybody, and I'll shut up now.
Okay, not a problem. All right, so let's move on over to Hank. You want to give us a brief on the finances?
We, as a club, we're doing very good financially. We have almost 200 dues paying members, which is a record for us. And as I was telling the other members of the committee, the executive committee, I believe most of it is attributed to our great Elmer program and also reopening our club meetings. You know, it's a lot of fun when you can see other people face to face and don't have to worry about, you know, talking to them and things like that. So I attribute those, but we have had a lot of new members this year. And if you get a chance, if you meet any of the new members, be sure to congratulate them for joining the club. Financially, our expenses are, you know, very, very low. Obviously, you know, you know that because we haven't had anything going on. We have close to $20,000 in the bank. We haven't spent very much, and hopefully it'll continue like that. But you know, having the reserve is really nice for the club. You never can tell when we might have an opportunity to rent a new space or something like that, or need some equipment and things like that. Of course, as you all know, the members have to approve any expenses that we have. So it's not that I could write a check and, you know, for $500 without the membership approving it. So the expenses are very low, and most of them are, you know, we spent like $100 on field, $120 on field day food and things like that, but it was all last year approved. So anyway, everything is looking good for the financial side. And if you have any questions, the financial statements are on the website, or you can email me or call me, and I'll be happy to go over. We have nothing that's not visible to any of our members that they want to know, including membership lists. So back to you.
Okay, thank you, Hank. And Hank is looking to retire this year as treasurer. Let's give Hank a hand for doing a bang-up job this year. Okay, we're going to move into, let's do our nets. 6 meter, go Jim over there. Hang on, Jim. They can't hear you.
Okay, the 6 meter net's been doing fairly good. Have anywhere from 10 to 15 check-ins a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. The band's been fairly decent lately. So if anybody's got 6 meter capability, and you do not need a dedicated 6 meter antenna, any a dipole will usually work. If you can throw it out there, I'll usually hear you. So, or one of us will hear you. So if you got 6 meter capability on your radio, try it this next week and get on 6 meter. Monday nights at 8 o'clock at 50.200 upper sideband. Thanks.
Wednesday night, we have our 10 meter net, 8 o'clock on 28.445 upper sideband. Like Jim, we've been running 12 to 15, 16 stations. It's a good way to get your feet wet in HF if you're fairly new or just getting into it.
Aries Net happens on the STARS repeater at 8 p.m. local time each Tuesday night. It's a preparedness and training drill for emergency net procedures. It gives you an opportunity to check out your equipment, whether it be base, mobile, or portable, and make sure that it's working so that in the event of a real Aries exercise, we're at least prepared and we know that our equipment will operate. Occasionally, we'll vary and do that on the UHF repeater. Sometimes we may do it simplex just to demonstrate that we can actually have an Aries net without a repeater. The Aries net controllers are doing a great job. We're having anywhere from 35 to 40 check-ins on Tuesday night, lots of check-ins, and it's a good night. We also use that as an opportunity for announcements and comments. So if you want to know what's upcoming and you haven't read the STARS newsletter, get on the Aries net. In addition to that, we're still running our morning net on the STARS repeater. Happens at 9 o'clock each morning. We do that in addition to the regular McDonald's morning group that may go out for coffee. If you don't go out there for coffee, get up, get your cup of coffee, and join us on the morning net, which we affectionately call MacNet. So I hope you can join us there.
Lee Greenwood. Greenleaf.
Can't hear you.
Okay, Lee, do the DMR net, please.
All right, guys, on Monday nights, 8:15 p.m. local time, we do the statewide Aries DMR net. Talk group 3140 is where you need to be. Starts at 8:15, and we always try to do a training session every week along with it. I alternate weeks with Mark, so one week you may get me and one week you may get him. But we have a good session. We have people from other states join us all the time, usually have around 30 people or so. But it's a good session, and I think you may learn some things you maybe didn't know before about DMR capabilities. So talk group 3140, 8:15 p.m. Monday nights. Thank you, sir.
The Gossip Net was started 7 or 8 years ago by Lauren, and it happens on the STARS repeater at 20:30 local time, or right after the Aries net on Tuesday nights. They have various net control operators. As they say, it takes you out of the technical into the social side of amateur radio and gives you an opportunity to chit chat and go on and on and on and on about any subject that you wish to talk about. So join them on the Gossip Net.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that. All right, Peter, UW by the Siren Net.
Every Saturday noon, the cities that are members of the Central Oklahoma Emergency Management Association test their sirens, the outdoor warning sirens that they sound in the event, usually of a tornado, but they could be for other reasons. They test them. And in a couple of the cities, we have enough spotters to actually provide data to those cities on field reports on the operating of the sirens. I believe all the certainly more in Norman have the capability of telemetry to those siren units, but there is often discrepancies between what the telemetry says is going on and what is actually going on. And our reports have been valuable to them to be able to direct their repair efforts as needed. So we do that every Saturday noon, weather permitting, if the weather's bad. And today it actually looks a little bit better than we thought it was going to be. Galen can say whether or not we're testing in more. Are we testing in more? Nod your head, Galen.
I haven't decided yet. I'm going to let the others make the call because I'm
Okay.
probably going to be on the road here shortly.
Okay. Yeah, there's usually a group decision on whether or not they're going to sound, and the weather's kind of iffy today, and generally we don't sound, the cities don't sound the test when the weather is iffy, because we don't, storm fatigue's a real thing, and we don't need to blow sirens for a test if there's weather around. So football games in Norman too tend to cancel the test as well. Otherwise, we sound them. We have a roll call. We call the roll. Everybody reports on their local siren, and then we pass that data on to the cities. If you're interested and you're not signed up, currently we're doing Norman, Moore, Noble, and Newcastle, and we do a pretty good job in Norman, and we do a pretty good job in Moore. There are a couple of people in the back row, Hal and Dee, who I haven't seen in ages. Hal is one of our spotters, NX5A. Raise your hand. That's it. Wave. He's one of our Moore spotters. Yeah. So if you live near a siren, it's really helpful. If you live right under the siren, it's great. You don't have to go anywhere. You just get on the radio and tell us what you heard. Let me know. There is an email address, siren@w5nor.org, and we will happily accept your reports that way if your radio is not working too. I've talked too much already. So thank you.
Okay. Hold that thought there, Peter. VE report.
Mark, can you put up the slide there, please? Well, if he's blocked my face, I can see, but probably okay though. No, that's not. There we go. I don't know if the XYZ triplets are here, but I know that KI5QMF and KF5YET are here. They both upgraded. David went to General and Jonathan went to Amateur Extra. I don't know if any of the other ones are here, but give them a round of applause. Very good. Yeah, so had the test on the 5th of August, 3 new techs, as you can see there. 2 fellows upgraded to general class, and Jonathan upgraded to amateur extra. So that was pretty exciting. Next test is, oh geez, you have to scroll down there a little bit. Okay, the next class, next test rather, is September 2nd and then October 7th, assuming we all haven't died of COVID or something. But
Okay, thank you, Peter. While you're there, Peter, say something about Smile.
Oh, you know, you're smart. You're smarter than we give you credit for, man. So Smile, and I'm not the treasurer and I'm not on the executive committee, but Smile is something we signed up for a number of years ago. It is a feature of Amazon. If you go to smile.amazon.com instead of just amazon.com, and you designate SCARS as your 501c3 charity, we get a cut of whatever you buy. And that's actually been pretty, I forget off the top of my head. I've got a spreadsheet that has all the numbers. It's somewhere around $1,000 $1,000 over the past 10 years or so. It's quite a bit of money, because it's a little tiny portion of what you pay that doesn't add to your cost. It comes out of Jeff Bezos' pocket, and clearly Mr. Bezos has far too much money, and it goes to the club, and it's a good deal. It more than pays for the coffee, let me put it that way. It's easy to sign up. You go to smile.amazon.com, and then you just do your regular Amazon stuff. You will be prompted to choose a charity. If you're already doing this for some other charity that you like, that's cool. We don't want to get in the way of that. But if you're not doing that, please consider setting it up for SCARS. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
But it's a good deal. It's a good deal for the club.
All right, so Mark's going to talk to us about the Ardmore Ham Fest that's coming up, and a couple other things.
Hammerrama Holiday.
Hammerrama Ding Dong.
Good morning. The ham fests are still a thing. At least they were this morning. I didn't get the call that Mike Rocky did. But our next ham fest that we're doing is called Hammerrama Holiday. It is going to be held in Ardmore, America, at the conference center down there, the same place they've always done that piece. The Oklahoma City group is helping to run this one this year. So hopefully it'll be bigger and better than last. And I guess the last time we had one is a good way to say it. Ham fests are place for all of us hams to bring your equipment, buy stuff, sell stuff. There's going to be testing, VE testing. So if you need to upgrade, that'd be a good place to go do it. There will be forums that'll explain everything from the Aries amateur radio, ARRL. Somebody really wants to go to a ham fest, it sounds like. So, put that on your calendar, which is the 22nd, 23rd of October. There's another one the following week in November up in Enid. That will be a little smaller one, but that one is also available. So if you missed the one in Ardmore, there's one the following week in Enid area. October 22nd, 23rd. Enid is the following Saturday, whatever that, the first week in it's in the newsletter, and it's going to be the first week of November, whatever that is, 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere in that range. Whatever that is. Yes, sir. Question.
There is a tailgate next week, next Saturday.
There's a tailgate at the Edmond location, which is typically up at 33rd, I think it is, and the water tower up there. So if the water tower falls, it would hit this place right underneath it. So that's 33rd and the railroad tracks, isn't it? Broadway. Yeah, it's right west of the interstate of 535 or 235. And that's usually a morning thing, 9 to noon or
7:30 to 12:30.
Exactly. Like I said, 7:30 to 12:30.
It is kind of funny if you haven't been there, you have to kind of snake your way around.
Follow all the antennas, and you usually can find the place in the back. But yes, it's a good place to go buy and sell. I understand this is the last one for the year, is what I've been told. There's also one in the Tulsa area on the 11th. We will have a meeting here on that day, the September 11th. Bob Heil will be here for that event. But there's also one in Tulsa for that one. Joplin is not having a ham fest. It's in the newsletter. Springfield is having a ham fest in September. So if you want to go up to Springfield, jump up the river. So that gets us on ham fest. Anybody questions on ham fest?
Yeah, I've never been to one.
You've never been to one? You want to know what the dress code is? Is that what you're saying? Oh. No, definitely. Is there one day that's better than the other? And when could you get there?
Good point.
Because I can only go one day.
Good point. The question is on Hamfest, what's the best time to come, what to expect, and that kind of thing. There's typically a Friday and a Saturday of these things. The Friday in Ardmore is usually a setup kind of thing where people show up and local people kind of dip their feet in the well, and it's a smaller part of the event. So if you're looking to go get some stuff from a few vendors that you know may be coming, that would be the time to come. The real event starts Saturday morning, and in Ardmore, if you have a table, it will be 7 o'clock setup time, so you can get in if you've rented a table. 8 o'clock will be the show up time for everybody else, and it runs till about noon on Saturday. So if you're the guy that needs to get the very best deal on the very best thing that walked in the door, you be there Saturday morning at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and you beat the people up that show up before you. But yeah, it's usually all day Saturday morning is a good way to do that kind of thing. Any other question? Good question. We need to push that more. Yeah, we'll grab that. Elmer Nights is next on the list, and Hank gave me a great production on that. I think one of the good things that we do is the Elmer Night Tuesday night here in this room. We do. Yeah, I'm seeing the head nods from all the people that are usual suspects that come. Last Tuesday was kind of fun. We had a lady and her grandson that were brand new, wanted to get their amateur radio licenses, and I'll say we collectively filled up their heads. Our new guy today is the one that helped fill them up, but
It's always a great place for new people to show. She showed up on Zoom and somebody said, well, you can go out there. And she jumped in the car and 8 minutes later she was here. I don't know how she made it with the speed limit, but that's not my question. But it's a good place for people to come and ask questions and do things. We also do it via Zoom/YouTube. So if you want to join there, it's on w5nor.org/Elmer Nights. You can find out about it. We run from 6:30 to 9, and literally people bring in radios, antennas, and plop them on the desk, and they walk away with them working. So we're in good shape on all of that stuff.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
Speaking of Elmer Knight, who's our resident expert on D104 microphones?
D104 microphones. A Peanut would probably be the D104. Jeff is putting his fingers up. Yeah, he's probably a really good one.
Okay, well, I have an acquaintance of mine that hit me up yesterday, has one, wants to know if I can test it. So I don't know whether it's working, not working. I don't know what the deal is. He's not a radio guy, so I don't even know what the deal is with it. But all right, I'll see if I can't corral it and bring it to Elmer Night some night.
Yeah, that'll work.
There's a lot of different varieties.
Yeah, that's
Really
a lot of different flavors.
Yeah.
Mark, our speaker is here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead.
We'll grab, well, let me just pause there, and then we'll go get Ed Fong set up. I'll give it back to Wayne so he can.
No, just go ahead with the meeting. Go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, no, we'll be a while, so we'll let you go through, and then we'll finish up.
Oh, really? Okay. Because it's a little early.
Yeah,
Okay.
no kidding.
If you're ready, Ed, we can go on.
No, I'm not ready. Go ahead with your meeting at 8:30. My plan was 8:30.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead. I've got plenty of time. I've got all morning.
Now that he's out of bed, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Question from Aubrey. Information from Aubrey. Hold on. Oh, David Grizzle plans to do siren test today is the super secret information. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. But back to Elmer Night, our story is we're here 6:30 to 9. And as Hank said, it's one of the best things we got going. When that puts me into the next transition, which is I would like to make a motion that we allocate $300 from the club's Red Cross Fund to purchase a stack of pieces and parts that include soldering iron stations, crimpers for power plugs, crimpers for antenna connectors, and the appropriate requirements for each one of those. So, oh, second. There you go.
Okay. Everybody approve?
Wait.
Do we have any discussion?
Yes. Hello?
Go ahead. I hear you.
Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me or not. I'd like to increase the amount to 500 because of the other things that we found in Elmer Nights that may not be included in what he's thinking about right now.
Okay.
I will accept that amendment. Will a second?
Rodney, seconds. Any more discussion?
Do we have, if we've got a list of the things we want, does anybody want to donate some stuff? We'd certainly take donations too.
Absolutely.
Let's just say up to $500. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend that much. Jeff, you had a question.
Well, I was going to agree with Lee that to pump it up a little bit because crimpers are not cheap. And, solder stations, stuff like that, you can get some modest soldering stations for not much money. I have a couple of crimpers I could probably donate. Also a little bit of soldering station stuff.
See, your boy is spoiling. Give us some money first, and then I'll ask for volunteers. Hold on.
But $500 is not unreasonable for.
Okay. Any more discussion?
One of the reasons I'm looking at upping it is because of not just using soldering irons and purchasing a couple of soldering stations for the club that can also teach hot air technique for surface mount technology.
Did the former president just say something about hot air?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I passed that along to you, remember?
Okay, Phil, did you have a question?
I would put the finger on it.
to buy the good ratchet or crimpers. Don't waste club money on a bunch of cheap old crimpers. Buy the good.
Agreed. Buy good stuff, not cheap. Any other discussion? Okay, all approved? All four?
Aye.
All against? Motion carries.
Thank you very much for that. Now I'm going to say, if you have any tools that you would like to donate to the cause, we would be happy to take those. And we have done that in the past. We've got a little set of toolkits that lets us get screwdrivers and wrenches, et cetera. But if you have something that you need to clean off your bench, like a soldering iron, even the cheapy $2 soldering irons, a new guy is not, it doesn't need anything more. We can get them started on, let them burn their fingers with those kind of things. So if you have stuff laying around, grab it and bring it Tuesday nights. We had a 20 megahertz scope show up last week, which is awesome. Thank you very much, Conrad, and all kinds of stuff. So happily take all that stuff. And that's why there's no list, because I'm hoping to get some volunteer stuff. Jim, I got another one for you. I got a 10 from Ralph Malton. Jim's got a question. We'll catch that one here at the end. That's another presentation, but that we just got some talking on that.
Okay.
Anything more on Elmer Night, I guess?
Okay. You want to say something about West Hammer?
Where are we at for time? Yeah. Oh yeah, we need. October 2nd. So the day before, you're going to go volunteer your time with Mike Rocky at the Memorial Marathon. The day before, October 2nd, from not as dark 30 as he's talking. I think it's 8 or 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. Max Westheimer is doing a fly-in / open house at the airport again. Last year it was a big event because they had an AOPA fly-in. They had all kinds of airplanes out there, and it is a great place for us to demonstrate amateur radio. I talked to them to get a spot for this, and I said, well, radio kind of works with airplanes, and the person from the tower said, amateur radio and airplanes go together like peanut butter and jelly. So they're pretty much happy with us, and I really want to keep them happy. We have a slot that is available. David Grizzle is going to be running his trailer and rig there for first aid and for cooling. So we're going to tag off of his stuff to do our things. Unknown what we want to do there yet. For sure, there'll be a demonstration, brochures, and those kind of things. We, as we get volunteers, we'll add more things to it. David Hilleman's almost offered, he's got to check his calendar, to help run the thing. He is running an airplane / radio blog, so he will use that to maybe do a live blog from that area. But one of the options is a special event station where we actually work stations from across the country. Is anybody interested in volunteering for or helping with a special event station for that, where we either operate as W5NOR or W5WF or Westheimer or something like that? Is anybody into special event stations that can help us place this up?
I will.
Oh, there's Lee. There's Jeff. There's Mike. Oh, good.
What's the date?
October 2nd, the day before. This is a precursor. Well, the second is the small run. They only need about 10 hams for that on the Memorial Marathon. So that one's not the big deal. It's the Sunday there that's the big deal for the marathon. Saturday they need 10 hams. Sunday they need 110. So that's the big date. But yeah, that'd be the 2nd of October, and that's for the fly-in / open house / whatever they're going to call it. Across the way at the terminal on the tarmac somewhere is where we're going to be. Thumbs up from Davey. Good. No Aussies, which is a bummer. We could put a grill out there. Maybe that would be good. We'll flesh more of that out as we grab some of the folks that volunteered and let them happen, make it happening. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, Mr. Fong, are you ready? Ed Fong? Did we lose you? No, he's there.
He's there.
He walked away.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk about the EOC.
Okay. I'll fill with one more chunk, which is the EOC piece here. I had a great lunch with David Grizzle sometime this week. And we came up with a lot of good projects that we were planning to do for the Tuesday night Elmer nights out of this. And the goal would be to, number one, rebuild the radios in the radio room to get them all up and running, reorganize that thing so it's a usable function. We've got, currently we have a tower that's been put up. The city has put a tower up next to the building, some RON 45. We have some runs of coax out there, and the goal is to put those up with the crimpers to put some new ends on those and get them up and running. Initial piece that David wants on that tower is he wants the siren. He's got a brand new antenna for the siren net. He wants to put it on the tower, and then we will initially put up a long wire antenna, or not a long wire, a fan dipole to get 20, 40, 80 and a 5 megahertz and 7 megahertz band for the dedicated state emergency channels. Then longer term will be to put something else on the top, which would be rotatable, somewhere in a beam slash UHF, VHF, and an HF beam, 10, 15, 20, as the conditions arise. So if you want to start helping with that project, show up here Tuesday nights and we'll start digging some stuff through. We've got some equipment to rebuild. We've got some computers to rebuild and move stuff around. So that should be a lot of fun out of that. The second piece is the city of Norman is going to spend a big pile of money on a brand new EOC that's going to be out at Hall Park, where the great big Hall Park water tower is.
You're welcome.
There's
About time.
Well, we'll see if we all live long enough. The plans are being worked there, and we're working through to try to get some stuff going. We're running into the usual architect stories at this point of this deal, but the goal is to have another radio set up in that area and another EOC operations out of that piece as well. It's turning out to be the 911 center, and that will be all the regular communications and emergency as well. Yep.
I have seen the plans for it and everything, and there is a dedicated room for ham in that building.
Yeah.
At the moment.
And it's going to stay.
Yep. So that's on the horizon coming through. That's coming through. Okay, it's back. With that, I'll pass it over to our illustrious Vice President. That's you.
Oh, okay. Okay, Mr. Fong, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you just fine.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
So
let's see. We got to share this screen here. So do I have control?
You have control.
I do. You're right. Thank you very much. So I go like this. Here. And let's try to do this to it now. Okay, so you see that? Oh, okay.
Okay, let me just say real quick, if you're on Zoom, please mute your microphones unless you've got something to say, please. Thank you.
Okay, let me move this over here, and I think we are all set to go. Thank you very much, Wayne. Hey, it looks like you guys have a good group. I suppose our group is big, but no one volunteers or anything, or very little. It's like two, you know how it goes. 2 or 3 people do all the work, but it's fine. Okay, thank you very much. My name's Ed Fong. So you guys are in Colorado somewhere?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. Oklahoma. Okay, the Midwest. Okay, I figured somewhere over there. So you guys are doing you guys are doing okay. We haven't started our in-house meetings yet. I mean, our Delta virus house, we were doing fine until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and all of a sudden this Delta thing. And so I don't know how it is over there, but it's they're playing it really safe here. Finally, our mayor here. You know, it's interesting. You guys are all educated hams. It's interesting. Every time they try to do something, ultimately everyone knows what they've got to do, which is you just got to get the shot. There's no buts and ifs about it now. And the mayor now of San Francisco says, okay, the only way we're going to get people to get the shot is, you know, they were saying for teachers, even teachers and public workers, you don't need the shot. Great to have a shot, but you just have to do testing every week. But then you have like 7 days where you can spread the thing. And finally, you know, they finally made it a rule here. If you want to work for the public office as a teacher at City Hall, you must get the shot. So that's good. I'm a scientist at the university, and we know this stuff pretty well. That's all I can say. Anyway, back to, and it's not politics, it's science. Okay, we're ready to go. So my name is Ed Fong. I teach at UC Santa Cruz, electrical engineering. And right now I've got, I only have 3 courses assigned to me. I teach an RF wireless class that's in communications. That's a fun class. Almost all of them get their ham license by the time they end it, because, you know, we go into like 5G communications and things like that. But we started out pretty basic from AM, FM, ham radio level, and then it gets advanced pretty quick. I teach a antenna class, and then I teach a high-speed optics IO class. So I've been doing that almost 10 years now. So anyway, but today we're going to talk about how you make a single band antenna dual band in a simple, doable manner, right? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of ways to do it. You know what they say, if you got money, you can do anything, which is true. Except convince everyone to get a COVID shot. You've got money, but it's free. Anyway, I've got my own personal campaign. Of course, on campus here, it's we've got the same demand. You don't step on campus unless you have a shot. For a while there, you know, they had you can wear a mask. If you don't have a shot, you wear a mask. It didn't work. That Delta virus is something else. Something else. It just penetrates all over the place. So yeah, now it's like you cannot get on unless you show that you've gotten your shot. Anyway, okay. So what we're going to talk about today is, you know, a lot of you folks have had single band antennas back 20, 30 years ago. So how do you make a dual band that's feasible, high performance, and again, you know, pretty durable to meet all the requirements? And what we're going to talk about today, I've covered, I guess the original article was published in 2003, back in February, so quite a while ago. And it's become a pretty standard because it's in the, this technique I'm showing you today is already in the UHF, VHF Antenna Classics AWR handbook. And it's also in the compendium, volume 8, volume 3. So it's pretty popular, pretty standard. For sure it works. We've sold probably up to about 35,000 of these now. And the AWRL has at least two of their versions there that they've tested. And yeah, it meets the standards. Unlike, you know, oh, well, let me tell you, if you get something published in QST, I have to respect them. They really try to confirm that this, you know, if it's an antenna, if it's a small one, you got to send a sample. If it's a little Arduino, they like you to send a sample, at least show a video of how it works. They really try to double check things because they don't want to be publishing things that just don't work. So, okay, let's move on here. So here are the articles, some of them here. The right one was the original one we did in QST. The left one was on a roll-up version of it. Oh, by the way, for questions, let's wait until the end. It's too hard on Zoom to just write them down, and I'll be more than glad to answer. The Zoom, the interruptions are just really, really tough. They break my train of thought too. And then our latest one was 2017. Some FEMA had requested that we do a tri-band, which pretty tough. I mean, they came to us at the university and said, is there any way you can make a tri-band antenna? We really, a 2 meter, 220, 440, all in one, and they had these interesting requirements of had to be inexpensive because they wanted to fill the trucks up with them. We're talking about thousands. Because I said, what are you guys using now? He says, well, we're using there's a Comet one, and I think Diamond makes a tri-band base. Because, you know, tri-band is not very popular worldwide because it's what Canada, us, and a few other countries use the 220 band. Most people do not have the 220 band as a ham band. So there's not as much incentive for the like Comet and Diamond to go make a tri-band because they know it's going to be limited sales. So that's why it's so expensive. It's like $180. So anyway, this antenna, FEMA came to us, you make us one for $50. If it works, no radios, it will save us a lot of troubles because the Common and Diamond ones have radios. So they have it in their van, they put it together. When you have to put things together, you start missing parts like the radios. So I said, okay, let me try it. And so this one is 5.5 feet tall. I think this prototype is a little taller, but we've got it down to 5.5 feet, 2 meter, 224/40, no radios. So it's pretty cool. We sell quite a few of these. Oh, by the way, so this is how my group raises funds. There's no obligation. There's no obligation to buy, but if you guys want to buy some of these afterwards, I give you the what's the dealer cost price. So my students kind of help me make these, and we'll go through this. What's surprising is over the years I've noticed that it is actually a difficult antenna to make right. I mean, in theory, you have halfway here, quarter way there, yeah, but actually to get it all tuned right, I don't let them do that. I let them cut the holes, all the parts and everything. I put together every single one and tune every single one. We do this in class as a class assignment, but I don't have them go into production with it. We would lose money. We got to produce these fast. But yeah, it is my antenna class. We do build the tri-band as to show the students how difficult it is to do a tri-band. Trying to get all 3 bands resonating and being able to tune it is not that easy. If that easy, a lot of folks would be doing it. Anyway, and then we have kind of patent a lot of our later designs, and I wasn't really into patents, not this stuff. I didn't even think it was patentable. To making it, J-pole and make it dual band patentable. Well, it turns out that when we published the QST article back in 2003, a lot of people thought it was a good idea, little entrepreneurs that started selling them on the internet and even calling it the Ed Fong antenna. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. But it was okay with me. Hey, if they're copying and selling, it must be a pretty decent product. Where I got upset was we started buying the products offline just to see. We didn't find a single one that worked right. They were resonating all over the place. They took our dimensions from the articles. I say in the article, these are just dimensions for our coax, for our twin lead. It's going to vary a little bit. That's why I tune every single one. In fact, we order the ladder line by we do a 50,000 feet order annually. We use up about 50,000 feet, and we special order that from Seminole Wiring. And it's not stuff you just pick up at a flea market. It's all specially ordered with special dielectrics and conductors, and just so it's optimized. But so after our attorney at UC Santa Cruz said, "You got to patent this stuff." I go, "Really?" It's Mike Kaufman. He's a really good guy. He says, "Yeah, you really do have to." So we've had to patent it. Luckily, at the university there's minimal charge, but still we have to do it. Okay, so let's go to the antenna. So to make a dual band antenna, we started out with a J-pole, and I'll tell you why. I could have started out with a ground plane, but again, by the 1990s, 2000 era, you'll find that ground planes weren't as popular, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And also dipoles were popular. This J-pole thing really intrigued me. Well, that's pretty cool the way it works, and also it's very close to the ideal pattern when vertical, and it's end fed. And let me show you why. And I'm sure a lot of you folks use J-poles now as opposed to dipoles. Here's one good reason. Here's the best reason why things have gone to a J-pole configuration. You go up to our local tower, which is called Mount Sutro, and you look at the main tower for the city of San Francisco, for the communications, for the utilities, police, and fire. Here it is. You take a picture of it now. I wish I had a picture of it 20, 30 years ago. But look at it. There's not a single antenna here that I can see that uses radios. That means they're all using some type of J-pole type configuration. And so why? We'll get into why.
Yeah, but for some reason.
But I hear someone's audio is coming through. I'm glad. Oh, they muted. Okay. So that's really interesting when you go. I took this picture maybe 3 years ago now. Yeah, there's not a single in less than 20 years. This tower has switched from ground plane antenna. I don't have a picture of it, but I wish I did. I remember going up there in that hill. Yeah, mostly, it was pretty standard 20, 30 years ago. Ground plane, maybe multiple collinears, so it's taller, but you see radios. We don't see notice there are no radios on any of these antennas. So most use an internal J-pole design. And I'll show you in a while. You don't need a lightning arrestor. Some people might put one on. So if you guys are using a J-pole design and you happen to go and go spend $50 on a lightning arrestor, you can remove it. All it's doing is introducing some loss and some mismatch, because it's a DC shorted design. You can't beat that. At DC, it's a short. So when you put your ohm meter across it, it's 0 ohms, and it's constantly discharging. A ground plane is an open circuit at DC, or dipole. Well, I'll show you here. Do I have a dipole? Here's a dipole antenna. Right, dipole antenna is here's the, let's call it the radiating element, and here's the shield element here, and then there's an insulator there. And so when you ohm this across, it's an open circuit. So of course, if there's a lightning storm close by, it will induce just by, it doesn't have to resonate, just by the transformer effect. When you got a 1,000,000 volt or 10 million volt lightning strike over here, it will induce. And all it has to really do is induce 30, 40 volts. Your protection is probably 30, 40 volts at the most. I mean, you can't protect it forever, because if you did, you wouldn't get sensitivity, performance wise. So you need a lightning arrestor. So that, these lightning arrestors that you get at about 30, 40 volts, they short. And they only short temporarily. But if you see in a J-pole design, let's see if I have one here. I'll just go through real quick. See in a J-pole design, I'll go over this in detail. It's a short circuit. It's a DC short circuit right at the bottom. You can't beat that. It's always discharging this element. I mean, theoretically, you shouldn't induce on anything in here unless you get a direct strike and everything blows up. So you really don't need a lightning arrest. It's the ideal in antenna. It's a DC short, but then you ask, how does it work? Well, no, at 145 megahertz or 146 megahertz, 445, you make it resonate. When it resonates, it goes up. It's just like any tuned circuit, right? If you have an LC circuit, it's a DC short with the inductor, but at the resonance, it's a high impedance. So that's the same principle. Let's go back here. Yeah, so there's the dipole. And if you could put the transmitter right here, you wouldn't need the mass, you wouldn't need the coax, great. But in truth, you can't do that. You always have to lead in a piece of coax. And if you lead in a piece of coax, you need to hold it up with something. And then you need this arm going out. Well, this arm going out, it creates, I'm just trying to explain why this is not an optimum antenna to start your projects with. You mechanical engineers out there, there's a torque point here, right? The longer this arm goes out, the better off you are, because it's away from this pole, which acts as a reflector. But the longer this goes out, the more torque is going to be created at that point. And if you were to even solder this with regular solder, you would have to weld it. If this is long enough over the years, and it's wind blows, and as you guys know, solder is really for an electrical connection, not for a mechanical. I mean, it'll do a little bit if you don't put any stress on it, like surface mount devices, but not to think that you can hold this solid. If there wasn't a torque on it, you obviously do, like your plumbing in your house. But if this is going to blow in the wind in the winter and all this, and the further this goes out, it's R cross F for you mechanical engineers that puts that force, the greater that force becomes. Like, give an example. Here, hang on. Let me think of it. Here's a good example. Here, I'll give you a quick example of why an antenna like this just doesn't last. Here's a piece of PVC pipe. I can hold it up vertically easily with one hand because the weight is vertical. But to think I can hold that horizontally, that's impossible, right? There's torque on it. And to think I can hold this up for 20, 30 years with wind, it falls apart. We know this because antennas used to be made that way. So you can't extend this very far out to a point where this doesn't act as a reflector. I mean, it's got to be many, many wavelengths before it doesn't see this as a reflector. So that doesn't hold up. Although, so in principle, if you can put a 30-watt transmitter right in there and get power in it, great, but you can't. So that's why we'll go to the J-pole, why we like that. So I was first introduced to J-pole in 1990s, mid-90s. And when I started testing it out, I found, hey, this thing actually works pretty well. Now, so you say, well, what's the disadvantage of it? I think the disadvantage is minor at VHF. It's hard to implement a JPO at 220 meters. The reason why is, we'll show you in a while. Well, I'll show you right now. It's a half wave dipole and with another quarter wave matching stub. That makes it pretty tall, 3/4 of a wavelength. So while a ground plane is only 1/4 of a wavelength, but it has radials. And I still think the trade-off, obviously, it's much better just have a vertical 3/4 of a wave. The reason why is you see that at towers. Again, at VHF, UHF, that's not bad. In VHF, if you start having multiple elements, it starts getting tall. But clearly at UHF, at only 6 inches per quarter wave, oh, you can make gain antennas with this in a couple of feet. That's it. So back here. So that's why I kind of like it. Plus, it gives about 1.5 dB, 1.6 dB of gain over a ground plane. And I'll explain that in a while, why it does that. It's very simple. I mean, you can do all the math, but I'm not a math guy. I like to do it intuitively, explain things, and then go do the math. I find that in my life, I tend to remember a lot more. But so I'm not going to introduce all the math of why that happens, but we'll explain it intuitively in a while, why a J-pole is about 1.5 to 1.6 dB better than a ground plane. So anyway, so I was introduced to this J-pole, but by 2000 or so, we have swap meets like you guys have. By 2000, 1990, started getting all these dual band handy talkies, dual band mobiles, and hams love to experiment with their own antennas because they figured we can save money. So people started asking it during swap meet weekends, hey, is there any way to make my single band antenna into a dual band? And what they found was, hey, it resonates. My J-pole or whatever they're using, it doesn't blow up when I measure the SWR at UHF. It's a VHF antenna, but it seems to work. Not great, but it seems to work. It does, because if you're an antenna designer, you can explain that portion pretty easily. Most antennas, virtually all antennas, I think, but despite some exceptions, will always resonate at odd harmonics. In other words, if you make 100 megahertz antenna, you will see the SWR dip at 300, 500, 700, etc. And this is the same case for a 2-meter antenna. And there's no accident that the FCC did this, third harmonics. VHF, 145 multiplied by 3, and you basically fall in the UHF band. It may not be exactly where you want it, but close enough, at least where your radio won't blow up. You put a SWR meter with, it's not great, but it's 1.5 to 1, 1.7 to 1, usable, perfectly usable. But what people found was, yeah, it might be usable from an SWR point of view, but not from a performance point of view. They, without even instruments, they could tell, not performing very well. Well, if you quantify this, simulate it on like EasyNet or ADS, that's correct. You lose about 6 to 8 dBs, and this is why. I'll show you here. Here's an EasyNet. Did we do this one on EasyNet? Yeah, we did this one on EasyNet. Reason why is you guys have access to that software. Llewellyn, Jim Llewellyn has this software that's free now. So if you do this in free space, just as a good reference in free space. So in reality, this is the sky, this is the earth, and this is sea level right here, sea level. And typically you would stand right there, and then your other person or measurement will be here, miles away or yards away or whatever it is. So if you map this pattern, what happens is a vertical dipole, half wave. So you're probably familiar with this. It'll look like a figure 8 pattern. So from looking up from the sky here, it'll cover 360 degrees. And it's just really ideal, the dipole, because it creates kind of a null here. And you want a null here. You're close by. You don't want it in the sky. You want all the energy to go out in the horizon. So it's not bad. A good vertical dipole, if you can implement it, is really quite a good antenna. Except that when you go to the third harmonic, although the third harmonic is a good match, its pattern looks like this. We call it this 4-leaf clover effect. And that's not what you want, because remember, this is the sky. And it turns out that, 4 to 6 dB, about 75% of the energy is in here. 25% of your energy is left here. Usable energy. So all of a sudden your 4-watt handy talkie looks like a 1-watt handy talkie. 4 watts is bad enough on a handy talkie. You don't need to go lose another 75%. So aside from an emergency hitting a repeater, you're probably okay, but it is 1/4 the power. You want to go the other way, right? You want to increase gain, not decrease gain. So we quickly noticed that just by simulation. So the question is, could you produce a new design or modifying a J-pole design that everyone had and get rid of this 6 to 8 dB loss? And there's probably a lot of ways of doing it, but I think the main criteria for hams is, but it had to be simple, reproducible, no radios. You couldn't add radios. So it had to be practical. No inductors, no fancy inductors that you got to buy, costing $10 to $20. That's just would be not practical. Now, the other thing I've noticed is whenever you modify an antenna, at VHF, UHF, or if you take one apart, take a diamond, whatever manufacturer apart, tram. This is the pattern we notice, and I kind of do this as a hobby profession. You kind of get paid at the university to just look into things, right? Especially you have students look into things. Hey, go look into this. Tell me what it is. So that's the great thing. You're curious. You don't have to do all the work. The students just love this practical work. They hate, believe it or not, most of them hate. I don't know how many engineers are listening here. Most of them don't go into engineering because they love Fourier transforms, discrete Fourier transforms, Maxwell's equations. If you're into that, most of these guys are physics mathematicians. Engineers, we like to build things, right? We like to make things and see them work and make measurements. We're typical engineers don't sit under a tree, drinking wine, eating French bread and thinking, oh, what can I think about this? Number one, there's not very many jobs like that. Most jobs say, hey, you're an engineer, you come on in here, we got a project, you got to build this radio or building or whatever, and then we pay you once it's done. There's not very few jobs around there here that will pay you to drink wine, eat French bread, and just look at the stars and come up with ideas. And that doesn't happen. So that's what I find most engineers, they don't care for the math. That's not their main thing. It's a tool. Math is a tool. They like to build things. So anyway, what's interesting is we found that antennas, when my students start taking them apart, and again, they love this, they try to actually teach them reverse engineering. Antennas at VHF, UHF, if you see a capacitor for matching, not a good antenna. We see some of these copies, they use cheap ceramic capacitors. And we've got good network analyzers in our lab. In fact, I've got one right here, right? I just happen to pull this out, that's why. Well, we're not using MFJs here, we're using Agilent, 5062s, 6 gigahertz analyzers. They're the best that money can buy. So we look at these things and there's no capacitor that works really well at 450 megahertz. You've got to use other techniques, strip line techniques, transmission line techniques for matching. But I am surprised that you open a Diamond X200, they use capacitors. I mean, that's just, and what's interesting is when we do these tests, again, I got free labor. Our antenna, amazing. I was shocked. And the reason why I knew this is other clubs that we had sold antennas to was trying, and they're so cheap. We sell them for, $32. So they buy a bunch. The weekend, they do the same thing. They have a little shootout contest. Ed, your antenna works just as well as an X200. And so we start testing that. In fact, we've bought at least 4 or 5 X200s from different batches and things like that. We find, does the antenna work, X200? It works. It works as good as ours does, an actual field test. But so we started reverse engineering. There's too many. I can't believe they use ceramic caps. It's like a 10 picofarad ceramic cap, and there's a 22 picofarad one. Are you joking? There's no way. That doesn't even make sense, because you can put that capacitor on a network analyzer. It's got a lot of series resistance, and it's got some inductance associated with it, because it's at 500 megahertz. You can do this at HF. You guys have probably played around traps at HF. I have. I was playing, and they're already tricky. Traps for multi-banding a dipole at HF, making little coils. You got to seal them, make sure you don't get moisture in it. And to think you can do that at 500 megahertz, you're dreaming. You're dreaming. So anyway, back to our thing. So I hope you guys don't use like X200s. The antenna works, but in field tests, no better than ours, no better. You know, I can prove it. I could take pictures of 4 or 5 of them I have here that we've taken apart and looked at. Anyway, okay. So what our goal was to convert a J pole now. We've taken the J pole. We like it. It doesn't need a lightning arrestor. Doesn't have radios. Oh, that was my project. We'll take that. Let's see if we can add UHF to it without having the lobes. So basically, we know that the antennas matching is not the problem. Again, you know, at VHF, it would also resonate at UHF. And okay, quarter-wave decoupling. Okay, I'll show you how this decoupling stub works. So let's go on to the, okay, so we went to this pattern, and in order for me to explain how we solve this is really important with antenna designers is just understanding the basics of a Smith chart. Just for antennas, you don't have to understand it as much. You start designing amplifiers with it. Yeah, there's a lot of things a Smith chart can do, but the main things you have to remember what the Smith chart shows is that you can start out at 0 ohms. Now this is not DC, AC. So let's get a little stub here, quarter wave stub here in my lab. I have. Find one. Here we go. Here, this happens to be quarter wave stub at UHF, which is about at UHF about 4.5 to 5 inches. Just a piece of coax. But you have to understand what a piece of coax does. It's an open circuit, right? It's an open circuit, but that's DC. You know, the thing I try to get across to my RF graduate students is this. It's amazing that DC and AC are the exact opposite of each other. You know, for example, I say, well, you get a piece of aluminum foil. At DC, that's a conductor, right? That's a conductor, aluminum foil. But at AC or RF, it's a shield. So one's a conductor, but at AC, it stops it. It's an insulator in a sense, if you want to look at it that way. I said, well, what's wood at DC? Well, wood at DC is an insulator because if you get an ohm meter across it, you don't read anything. What is it at RF? It's a conductor. Of course, it's a conductor. That's how radio waves go through a building, right? So you got to get that in your mind. It's almost direct opposites, and it is confusing. It is confusing. So the Smith chart kind of straightens that out, but to keep that's the basic thing we teach. If you can understand that they're almost opposites of each other. Because if I didn't say that, one would say, here's a piece of coax. If I short this end, just solder short piece of coax, what is it at this end? They go, oh, short. Wrong, it's not a short. You got to understand. Hang on, I see the audience here. I want to see how many of you guys are like technical background, you know, as a job, you know, EE, technician or something. Show of hands. I can see you guys. No, not that many. You got Leah is one, but no, not many. Okay. So how about raise your hands? I see the audience that you understand what I'm talking about. Most. Okay, some. Okay. So let me explain it. Okay. So that's the thing you got to get in mind. A short, if you short this side, it becomes a short only at DC. If it's an open here, you think it's open here. That's only DC, only DC. And boy, that is a tough one to get across to people a lot because it's not intuitive. What do you mean? You short a piece of wire, it's got to be a short circuit, only at DC. What the Smith chart shows you is if you short something, 0 ohms, right? 0 ohms, you start with 0 ohms. As you move 1/4, the Smith chart represents 1/4 of a wavelength, 180 degrees, 1/2 of a wavelength, 360 degrees. So every time you go 180 degrees, it represents a quarter wavelength. So what the Smith chart says is if I short one end and go a quarter wavelength, and at UHF, it's got to be at a particular frequency. So at 445 megahertz, our UHF, it's about 4.5, 5 inches or so. If you go here, that will read maybe not infinity, but pretty high, right? Thousands of ohms. And vice versa. You say, open circuit, what's an open circuit? How simple can that be? It gets pretty complicated. An open circuit, believe it or not, it will read a short circuit here at a quarter. So a quarter wave for this is about 445 megahertz. That's what it would read. And that you got to get through your thick head. I know it's very counterintuitive if you grow up playing around with little light bulbs and little telegraph sets. All of a sudden you move into RF, it's a different world. So if you have that in mind, then we can move on, because here is how a J-pole works. If you guys have wondered how a J-pole works, it works like this without all the math. So here's a dipole antenna, 2 meters, 37, 38 inches, depending what frequency you want, but it's in that range, 37, 38 inches. Because a quarter wave is like 17, 18, 19 inches. It can depend, depending on where you tune it. So normally in a dipole, so pretend this is like twin lead, you would have center fed it, right? You would have center fed it. And that's what we did here. When we showed this dipole here, that's a center fed dipole. And again, it works fine if ideally you can set up a transmitter right there with no coax, but you can't in real life. So you want to come as close as possible to this. So the middle of this is 70, 50, 65, 70 ohms or so. You can feed it with a coax, but again, it's not desirable from a mechanical point of view, because you'll need a perpendicular piece of coax here, and then you'll need a mass, and it's just not very practical, as we've shown over the years. And also, what's important is it's going to be an open circuit. You have to break the center. It's going to be a DC open, which means it's going to open itself to lightning, static charge, and all this stuff. Well, here is the J-pole. So if the middle is a low impedance, most of your radiation occurs at the end. That's because at the end of a dipole, the voltage is the highest. If the voltage is the highest, the current must be the lowest, because it's the same power going throughout. So at the ends, that's a high impedance. It's not infinity. Ideally, on paper it's infinity, but it's in the thousands of ohms. If you put an analyzer in, it's in the thousands of ohms. So the trick is, then how do you match it? If you want to end feed something, whether it's 20 meters or whether it's here at VHF and UHF, you need to convert that 50 ohm coax that's driven by your radio, which is 50 ohms. You need to make some type of a transformer that would transform that into high impedance if you want to feed it at that end. Well, back to the quarter wave stop. I just said is a short circuit. Like here, you short circuit one end. And if you go a quarter wave, it's infinity. And somewhere you could say, well, if this is infinity or thousands of ohms and that's zero, don't you kind of go across 50? You do. And you say, well, not exactly. You have a little bit of inductance. Yeah, you do. That's why it's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's really not bad. Here's very high impedance, which matches the end of a dipole. That's a short circuit. So it's short circuit here, which is great. DC short. It cannot hold a charge at that point, not for very long, because it's a DC short. And somewhere along that line, at about 1.25 inches, it's about 50 ohms. And we actually did this experimentally. Just play around with it. Good network analyzer. So here's how your basic J-pole works. I'm going to get a show of hands. How many of you folks use a version of a J-pole? Yeah, a lot of you folks. Yeah. I think very few of you now use ground planes. This is just it's just engineering design. Engineers figure things out over the years. We land man on the moon if they give us enough money, time, right? So this is what they figured out. This is a superior design. But again, the disadvantage, it is pretty tall. You're talking 40, 50, almost 60 inches here, right? 40, 50, yeah, not quite 60 inches. It's pretty tall, as opposed to a ground plane, which is only a quarter wave, which is about 18 or 9 inches tall, but it has radials. And again, you can hold it very easily. So that's where the J-pole comes in. It's a nice, neat, clean design. And there's versions of it. I think earlier we saw versions like this. These days, you see these at swap meets. You see it on eBay too. kind of expensive. I tell people, it works. We built these. I mean, I have one of them. We build these in our lab. Just to demonstrate to them that this principle of a J-pole works regardless of whether you make it out of a PVC pipe or copper. And the reason why I wouldn't advise copper is we found that the simple way we make it out of twin lead works just as well. And here the cost, you've got end caps, you've got a coupler, you've got a T, you've got an elbow, and then you got to weld it or solder it. It's quite elaborate. It doesn't look very nice. It works. It does work. We build them and they do work. The only problem is that they don't work. This version does not work very well at UHF. And where the drawbacks is that the spacing. Remember, this is the quarter wave transmission line. This is a decent transmission line at VHF because VHF is 146 megahertz and a quarter wave is 19 inches. So this transmission line is about 1.5, not a little under 2 inches. Well, that's okay. So this acts as an okay transmission line at VHF because again, quarter wave is about 18 inches and this is only about 1.5, 2 inches. It's acceptable. It's about at the limit. But at UHF, remember at UHF, quarter wave is only 5 or 6 inches. You can't use a quarter wave 5 or 6 inches UHF and think that this is going to act as a good transmission line. Too much of it radiates already. By the time it hops across, that's almost 2 inches. It starts radiating your UHF signal in the wrong polarity. It's horizontal. So we found this does not work very good at UHF. At VHF, it's decent. It's kind of cumbersome to make. So that's one version of it, of the J-pole. And then here's another version of the J-pole. Now, I want to explain to you why at UHF, it doesn't work very well. Actually, a better, since I mentioned, I think I have a pattern. Here. So here is our version of a dual banding. I'm just going to show you here. Here's the matching section, VHS, that's quarter wave matching. It's about 15 and a quarter plus 1.25 is 16.5 inches. And a lot of folks, I think a lot of you folks know that, but let me review that. You go, wow, 16.5, shouldn't it be about 18, 19 inches? It is, that's true. 18 or 19 inches comes from the formula C is equal to F lambda. The speed of light is equal to frequency times the wavelength. If you work that out, speed of light 3 times 10 to the 8th meters a second or so. Frequency 146 megahertz. You work out lambda, quarter wave, is about 18, 19 inches. Why is it 16.25 for a quarter wave? That's because it's in the twin lead. The twin lead, remember the formula is the speed of light is equal to frequency times wavelength. But the speed of light, or the speed that the wave travels in the twin lead, is obviously slower than the speed of light. That's called the velocity factor. It's how much it slows down the speed of light, about 10, 15% or so. So instead of about 18, 19 inches, it's about 16.5 in twin lead. So that's why they say the velocity factor of this is 0.8, depending on the manufacturer. But here's how we've mapped the quarter wave. So it's a short circuit here. This is for 2 meters at quarter wave at VHF. Obviously starts out as a short circuit, so the voltage must be 0, current's maximum. Here's your matching 50 ohm point. And then as you go up a quarter wave, the voltage goes up, 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 which means the current goes down, which means the impedance is going higher and higher and higher. That's at VHF, so it kind of looks like this. At UHF, it looks like this. At UHF, a quarter wave ends about here. It's about there. But the reason why this matching stub still works is you go another half wave, right? Another half wave, it dips back down, which is here. And then all of a sudden it goes back up again. So it goes back up. It goes back up to high impedance or high voltage, which is a high impedance. That's why the matching here, this will match both VHF and UHF. What the problem is at UHF, you would like to feed this half wave. You would like to stop it at about 11 to 12 inches, depending on the frequency you're using. But if you kept the antenna like this, what happens at UHF? You would like it to just cut off at about 11, 12 inches, but it continues. If you don't do anything to it, it continues. That's where you get the lobes. You drive the currents here. It would like to have seen 12 inches stop. With it like this, it doesn't stop. The currents will continue. And if it continues, what do you think it happens? It starts pulling the wave up. It pulls the wave up. So that's why you get these lobes. What you would like to do is somehow electrically or make a trap where it cuts off at UHF at about 12 inches. Then you don't get the lobes. But of course, and then at VHF, you want it to continue. So let me go through this again. So here's the J-pole you guys use. Here's another version of it. Arrow puts it out. So Arrow knows about this problem 15 years ago. So, yeah, you can't use a 2-meter J-pole at UHF. It works better than nothing. Not better than a rubber duck. In fact, the rubber duck works slightly better. But we want to do something about it. Their engineers came up with, and I don't know who came up with this design, but it's pretty clever. They put an extra resonant element there. 6.5 inches, quarter wave. So what you see is, you see two antennas. When you feed it, UHF sees this, right? 6.5 and 19.25. So here's the J-pole at UHF. But at VHF, you see this. The whole thing. See, that's about 60 inches. And we have them here. We tested it out. Here. Right here. And does their principle work? It does work. It is an improvement. It's about a 3, oh, even a 4 dB improvement over just the single band J-pole at UHF. And the reason why it isn't a complete improvement is this. They have a single feed point. So at VHF, the resonance is this element here with that element there. And at UHF, it's this 19.25 inch element here with the 6.5, with a single feed point. So when you feed a UHF signal, if both VHF and UHF are matched, half the signal goes in here, which is the proper, but still, if it's a good match, let's just assume they're equally matched. The other half still goes into the wrong portion. And to the wrong portion, you lose about 75% of the energy. So you look at it, half of it's going to the correct antenna. The other half, you lose about 75%. So is it a measurable improvement? It is, but it isn't perfect. And then the last slide I have, okay. The last slide I have is a Slim Jim. You hear about the Slim Jim. You can Google Slim Jim and you come up with these designs and all these crazy things. I mean, it's as political as the COVID shot. People say, you know, I do this for a living. So does Larry Seebeck. The Slim Jim does not give you 6 dB of gain. It might compare to a rubber duck or something. It is no different. We've simulated it. We've done tests. You don't go shorting the little tip and voila, 6 dB. No, getting gain is much more complicated than that. It does nothing. I mean, it doesn't do any harm. It's basically a VHF antenna and also UHF losing 6 dB. So don't get fooled by, I'm going to build myself a Slim Jim because this article says I get 6 dB gain. It's basically just a J-pole. Just to clarify things. And there I can say this because I am an antenna designer. I do have a PhD in it. I do have some say of what works and what doesn't work. COVID shot, I listen to my colleagues at the university. And the same thing is they listen to me. When they have an antenna problem, they come to me. That's how the life works. Right? If you have a heart attack, don't come to me, right? Just because I have a PhD, don't come to me. You go to a heart surgeon, right? I love this story, by the way. I love this story. Here, Leah's laughing. This is the greatest story I've ever heard. I go, well, you never know. Someone can be wrong. And you got to listen to these people with no background in medicine, epidemiology. They might be right. I go, well, you know, the next time you have a heart attack, don't go to the emergency room and go to a homeless person in the street and says, I'm having a heart attack. What do I do? because just by some remote possibility, they might know more than the heart surgeons and the cardiologists and all that. That's how we see the logic. Okay, anyway, so how do we solve this problem? Could a homeless person have solved this problem? Unlikely, because you gotta be good at, you go to people you're trained and you have to trust their judgment. You know, Dr. Anthony Fauci, he's probably, he knows a lot more than I do about his field. And maybe if he wanted to get a ham license, he would call me, right? He hasn't called me, by the way. By the way, I have met the man. And Tony Fauci's a really nice guy. I met him 30 years ago for lunch at NIH. A long story, but I had lunch. He's a really nice guy. Obviously, tremendous patience, right? Tremendous patience. Anyway, yeah, he's a really cool guy. At 80 years old, I don't know how he goes, but it's amazing at 80 years old. Okay, so here's back to this antenna. So we feed it the same way. That was never a problem, the matching, because at UHF, you add an extra half wave. That's another way of saying another spin around the Smith chart, the impedance stays the same. It matches. The matching is not the problem. So what you got to do is you got to cut it off at about 11 1/4, 12 inches, depending what frequency you want. You want this cut off. Then it works at UHF. Because if you didn't have this little stub here, it will continue and you get those lobes. So what do you put here? Again, back to this really cool concept of a short circuit. You put a piece of coax, short circuit. If you short circuit it and at 4 1/4, 4.5 inches, it's an open circuit only at UHF, not at VHF. I'll explain to you what it does at VHF, fortunately. It's an open circuit. So therefore at UHF, the wave matches here, you drive it, it goes through here, the voltage plots look like this, and it feeds it, it sees a half wave, great. And at VHF, the voltage with this quarter wave stub looks like this, and then it's supposed to see about 36, 37 inches. And you add all that up, I think it's like 37 something here. This is the half wave at VHF. Now, of course, the question becomes, well, what happens to that stub at VHF? Fortunately, not too much. We actually analyzed it. So here's another version of it, rolled up. One of my students came up with this idea. He was a backpacker, and so am I. I used to, at least. He says, can you make this thing all rolled up? And as we worked on it, and yeah, that's when we did the other article, the roll-up version of it. It's the same. The theory is the same. It's just that you got to do it just right. Cut the little notches and all this stuff in the right places, and put heat shrinkable tubing, and it holds up really well. So, so here's an important thing. If you add up all the dimensions here with the one that goes into a PVC pipe, as opposed to a roll-up, which doesn't go into a PVC pipe, right? A roll-up looks like this. I have one here. This is my work, right? So this is how this works. If you look at this antenna, here it is. I'm going to pull it out of the package. I don't know if you can see all this, but here's a little cable going into the stub. Here's the little notch here, this little notch there. There's a little RG174 coax, and here's the last 17-inch piece. This goes into this PVC pipe here, which is, thank God, some chemists, again, I don't interfere with other people's field. They figured this out. PVC now, they put enough research into it, will not deteriorate, as you guys probably already know this, in sunlight. The old stuff used to turn brittle, yellow. No, the new stuff does not do that. It's treated. It's the same formula that they make 30-year vinyl windows with. So it's pretty tried and true. It'll go 30, 40 years and it won't break. And it's cheap, right? Really cheap at Lowe's. So you just stick this antenna into the pipe. And here's the end-fed connector, SO239, and voila, you have a good antenna. But what you'll notice is this: if you add up all the dimensions here of the one that goes into the pipe, as opposed to the roll up, as opposed to the here, as opposed to the roll up, which is all one piece. This is not designed to go in the pipe. It's just designed to be hung from a tree or a balcony or something. And you add up these dimensions. It's about 2 inches longer. This roll up is about 2 inches longer than the one that's going to go in the pipe. Why? Because when it goes into the pipe, you slow down the speed of light, and the wavelength is always equal to C is equal to F lambda. In that case, the C, when it goes in the pipe, is about 3 to 4% slower. So in the end, if you add up the dimensions here, and you add up the dimensions there, this is about 2 inches longer in the end. So don't be surprised when people buy both. Hey, the two antennas don't even match. How can it work? That's the reason. The roll-up is going to be a little bit longer because it radiates directly into air, not into a PVC pipe. Okay, we're going through this. Oh, and so we tried out a bunch of PVC pipes. You figure, how do you know this PVC pipe is good? We tried a bunch out, and we found that the Lowell's one works the best. 23990 is cheap. Others probably perform okay. We've in a very, very simple way. If you're not sure of the pipe you get works well RF wise, you don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. The fancy equipment you already have at home. It's called a microwave oven. Cut a piece of it. If you put it in there for 5 minutes, you hear sparks. That means it's got conductors in it, some fibers or something. If even it gets warm, that means it's absorbing RF. So that's how you know. And most do not. Most are fine. Most are fine. But that's a good way of testing the material these days. You don't have to have a bunch of sophisticated equipment. If it gets warm in a microwave oven after 5 minutes, you know it's absorbing RF. Okay, so here we actually do the performance test. And sure enough, the 2-meter J-pole at UHF, here's a reference point, just a relative thing with a 8591 spectrum analyzer. We did this in a test in a parking lot, clear. But when we use our antenna, the DBJ1 at UHF, yeah, you certainly do get back about 6 dB of gain. So it works. And we did actual measurements. And these measurements, we had fun doing these. We talked to the National Institute Standards of Technologies. Well, a typical antenna should be tested under 3 conditions: rain, overcast fog, high humidity, and a sunny day, because it will vary. Because again, the velocity factor, right? The speed of light, if it's really damp, the speed of light slows down. And if it's really dry, it speeds up. And yeah, so we took these measurements, and sure enough, it's minus 24.7 dB was a reference. And a rubber duck loses about 6 dB, which is expected. A standard J-pole loses about the same. This is a VHF, I'm sorry, a VHF. So a quarter wave, minus 24 dB, and a J-pole loses only about minus 23 under these conditions. So it is better than a ground plane, even in field tests like this. And ours is about the same as a regular J-pole. It may be a little bit lower. It may lose like 0.1 dB because of that little stub. But overall, it's very close. And this is out of 5 measurements each time. 5 measurements each at a sunny day, a rainy day, and an overcast day. So this is actually 15 measurements average. And when you do that, it turns out those ideal simulations are pretty good. They turn out to be pretty good. Now at UHF, that was where our problem was. Using a VHF J-pole at UHF, an actual fuel measurement had too much losses, about 75%. So let's take a look at this. Same situation. I remember this. We were just in a parking lot reference. Use a quarter wave mobile, minus 38.8. That was like 50 yards or so. We were doing this test. So that's a reference, minus 38.8. A rubber duck at UHF doesn't lose too much, a couple of dBs, 2 or 3 dBs. And if you really worked at it, pick different antennas, and it might even be less, but it's about 2 to 3 dBs, a rubber duck at UHF. The standard VHF J-pole, this is at UHF now. It loses about 6 or 7 dBs. Right? Minus 30, also that's at minus 45. It clearly loses it. But if you use our J-pole and measure it, it's back. minus 38.8, and it's at minus 38.9. It does not quite make it because, like I said, this when you say a stub is at infinity, it obviously is not infinity. When you measure it, several thousand ohms, a quarter wave stub, short. If you measure it and analyze it, you would like infinity, but it isn't. It's in the several thousands. So it's not quite perfect, but boy, it's better than losing that minus 45. And now it's at minus 38. That's why that's 6-7 dBs of gain. That's a lot. You don't even need instruments really to know that the performance, unless it's a strong repeater, you could tell 6 or 7 dB of gain. So here's our lab. This is a picture taken a while back when we did these antennas, but now we still have this. The students still use this, but we use these now. I tell all my students in our RF class and our high-speed IO class, buy one of these nanos, for $60. It's a steal. You can't beat them. Learn how to use it, and for what a ham would need, it is as good as our 80. This is 8753, which is $80,000 piece of instrument. For what a ham uses for, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And then I just like you demand a textbook, right? I demand one of these in my RF design class. You don't have one, drop out of the class. You won't pass because I did homework assignments and everything like that. And of course, we've got the new one I just showed you, the 5062. That's a really nice unit, but most cases I don't need it. I mean, it's a really critical. We're tuning something really critically, sure, for paper or something, but to get everything in the ballpark, these are fine. I mean, the only thing it lacks is, it doesn't have quite the dynamic range. Who cares? It doesn't matter that much now, just for playing around. For hams, it's fine. So that's what we use. Okay, here's an interesting. So here's the stub. Here's that quarter wave stub at 445 megahertz, actually right there. See, it's not infinity. It should have been there, but that's really hard to do. It's more like here. At least it's not here, right? It's not 50 ohms. It's way higher. It's several thousand ohms. So it really helps the situation. In the end, you get within 0.1, 0.2 dB of ideal, which is quite an improvement over 6 dB of loss. And the stub is pretty stable. I looked at the stub. I said, well, how stable is that point if I put my hand around it? Yeah, it's not stable in other places, but right at 445, it's pretty stable. You would like it to be here, but it's there. Helps a lot. Not perfect, but it helps a lot. And then you'd say, well, what does the stub do at 146 megahertz? Well, it's a stub. It looks like a capacitor between the center conductor and the shield. Not ideal. But we look at it at 146. This is the stub. It's not infinity again, but that's how it looks. And then you got to compare it to a piece of wire, right? Would have been just normal wire there. And wire kind of looks like that. Seems close enough. Not perfect, but boy, it's quite an improvement, right? It's the overall performance of the antenna is night and day compared to that 6 dB loss we were getting. That's just, to me, everyone notices this. Now, at the 0.1 dB level, you need pretty good instruments to even measure that. So here's how it looks, right? It's about 60 inches tall, but the thing is, all the torque is down here, not horizontal, or you're trying to hold up anything. So it holds up really well. It doesn't look bad. It's white, easy to mount, really easy to mount. In fact, I tell folks, the antenna doesn't know the difference. Just clamp it on to the side of their building or clamp it on with your vent pipe. It works fine, as long as it's in the clear. You don't need some fancy tower. The antenna doesn't know that you're in a fancy tower, except that you're in the clear, right? The important part is get the antenna in the clear. And here's the roll-up version. Here's the antenna, and we also include a 6 feet extension, an RF extension. We have these made. It's got a male BNC and a female, so you can just hook it up like an extension cord. And we sell these for like $5 each if you want. But one of my students years ago said, if you're going to sell these things, buy the stuff by the thousands, like the adapters. So it starts out as a BNC male, and we throw in the adapters to go to SMA male and SMA female for the Baofangs. And then of course we also have the adapter for BNC to PL259. Not everyone needs that, not for handy talkie, but we charge like $250 for that adapter. It's an accessory you want to get. Okay. So if you like this talk, okay. At the end of this talk, any questions at this point? Sure. Yeah. Turn on your mic.
Yep.
Unmute.
Any questions?
Can you hear me?
Sure, go ahead.
Two questions, Dr. Fong, and God, I love your antennas. I built every
Oh,
one of
good.
them. Have you ever substituted the RG316 in place of the RG174? And would the velocity factor difference have a significant change in resonance?
It will have a change. I don't know what's significant. We do a 250 watt version with RG8X. And you say, why don't we do that? It's a lot harder to build. And if you're doing onesie twosies, yes, that RG174 is more amenable to the twin lead. So our standard one is RG174, which will handle spec out at 75 watts. And if you want a special request for a 250 watt version, we built the stub and the lead-in coax with RG8X. But it's a lot harder to, just physically, it's hard,
Okay.
that's why.
I was just under the belief that 316, actually has more capability than the 174.
Okay, what's 316? I'm not familiar with it.
316 is used internal coax in a lot of amplifiers. It's used in oscilloscopes. Very excellent capabilities to it. The velocity factor on it's 0.66.
Okay, same thing, same as RG174 then. No, that's probably expensive.
I may have told you wrong because I was thinking, I may have been thinking 174 when I said the 0.66.
Yeah, so I haven't used that. It sounds more exotic. 174 we buy in 1,500 feet rolls, relatively inexpensive. And then it doesn't travel very far, right? We're only talking 8 inches. The losses, that's not where we're getting the losses. But yeah, I mean, you can use anything, just compensate for the velocity factor.
Okay, and my second question is, have you done any testing by painting the
Yes.
200 scheduled PVC, and is there any loss factors there?
Hey, you might think we're crazy, but I tell you, when this painting idea come up, there is a master's thesis. You say, master's thesis on painting an antenna? Well, that's how practical hams are. Come on. No, it actually gets pretty complicated. The chemistry involved, the velocity that we did measurement. Actually, the student that did this, his main thing was, how do you measure the task that it takes to measure the difference between two antennas, one painted, one unpainted, and then testing different paints. So 10 years ago. And what we found, what his conclusion for a ham, long story short, without all the reflection coefficients and anything can get really mathematical, whether it's relevant or not to a ham. I'm a true ham. I went through all the math and all that stuff. I just like to tinker, and then when I have to analyze something, sure. We found that Krylon spray paint, the stuff you buy at Harvest by Krylon, is very, very good. You can put multiple coats, and it doesn't change the velocity factor of any significance. Spray 2 or 3 coats to cover your antenna, you're fine. We didn't find. I mean, yeah, measurable, but irrelevant. I mean, 50 kilohertz here and there. Come on, that's irrelevant. And that's like after 3 coats. So you'll find that if you use Krylon spray paint, pretty good. Okay.
Right. And also I've noted that there's, quite a bit of difference these days, it appears, in what's called 300 ohm twin lead.
Oh, of course, there's only one manufacturer in the world that still makes it. Believe it or not, we checked. We even went to China and said, can you make this? Because we could, but we'll have to make a new die. We had a meeting with Steve Lampin, the vice president of Belden, that used to make this stuff. And they said, no, we won't make it. So the only manufacturer of 300 ohm twin lead, actually, I guess they make it to the public. I'm not sure. We have a custom made for us, is Seminole Wiring. That's the only company in the world. Anything else you get is probably surplus. It's the only Seminole Wiring. And you can buy that through HRO. They will order it for you. Okay. Where have you seen it? Because I would love to know if anyone still makes that stuff. We looked all over.
Well, I found it at the old Radio Shack. I found some at Home Depot that was more of a foam fill insulator. what they call the,
All those have different velocity factors. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
There's no good source for that stuff. Surplus, yes, but we use about 50,000 feet of the twin lead per year, about 50,000.
Ed,
So we had to go to Seminole. The good thing about going there, then we told them exactly how to make it, what characteristics we wanted, because at 50,000 they'll do it until we get exactly what we want.
Got a question that how that old style vintage twin lead varies the equation, velocity factor probably.
All over the place.
Yeah.
Not worth it. We found that we'd rather go to Seminole wiring. You give us 50,000 feet of the same run, right? Then it's pretty consistent. Otherwise, yeah, you're retuning every time you get a new lot in. Yeah, it varies quite a bit, like from 0.7 to 0.9, yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, I will ask one more because I don't want to dominate your time, but like I said, I love the design. From the DBJ1 and DBJ2, the DBJ2 designed for in coax or in PVC and out. I know that the slot there at the end of the first run where the 174 starts, you remove the opposite side of the twin lead. Is that removing a resonator, or what faculty does that play?
Yeah, I'm not clear on that. I removed the opposite twin lead.
Well, you look at your drawings between number 17 and number 18.
Sure, okay.
And you see that one side has the wire missing.
Left. Here. Oh, in the DBJ one, that's about 8 inches, and it goes to the SL239 connector.
Okay.
And of course, in the roll up, we have to do a BNC.
Okay. Now,
that's the only difference.
The other aspect is I have substituted the 174 at the bottom with RG58.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the only thing I noted is that when I was doing the matching, I had to cut more off the tip to match the resonance.
Could be, I don't. It depends on the length. You're getting down to resonance, anything can happen. But it should, if you find a good 50 ohm point here, it should be pretty consistent. It should be independent of length, but that, and as an antenna designer, I know it isn't, because if you have a slight mismatch, you're going to get nodes here, right, in the coax. So cut a few inches here and you'll find a better SWR. Add a few inches there, yeah, it will change slightly. That's why. But
Thank
yeah,
you, Dr. Fong.
theoretically, if it's perfectly matched. Any other questions? Okay, so I got it. What time is it? What time? It is. Oh, 1 hour. Okay, we'll get it going. So here's our lab. Here we show these. And so my other talks are, we give one on how do you actually really get gain out of a J-pole? Not dual band, but like 5-6 dB gain. You do have to add elements. You got to make it into a collinear fashion. So I have a talk on that. And then of course we have a talk on our tri-band. How do you actually get the thing going at 220 also on too? So that took us a while to figure out. And we don't sell radios, but we've tried these. And I have to say, I'm impressed with these Chinese radios. For $100, they're not bad. 2 meters, 220, 440, $100 or so for the mobile. The UV5R, they've got a ×3 one, which is gives you the 220. It works. We have them and we play with them. Okay, another thing we offer is about in 2012, I had a contract to work with CountyCom to build a software-defined radio, handheld. It uses the Silicon Labs chip. It covers, it's an HF radio, receive only, AM, single sideband. We have single sideband filters and demodulators with it. It also covers the low frequency band and FM stereo. This is for some government contract you had for emergency radios. Pretty good spec. I mean, it should last 225 hours on recharge or on a set of alkaline batteries. Really nice. I've got about 6 left. They gave us a bunch of these. If you guys want to order them, if you see them online from them, it's about $100 with tax and shipping. It's about $100. So if you're interested in one, I've got about 6 left. You get $35 off because they gave us a couple of cases of them. We didn't charge them for the design, and they thought, well, you want some radios? I said, sure. So I gave them to my students, and we've been people in these seminars if you want them, but we are running on. We have about 6 left. That's it. So if you're interested, so here, I'll give Wayne a spreadsheet, and you can mail it out, and you just fill in what you want. And then I just need a summary. The antennas, the one we just talked about, is $32. It comes in commercial too, commercial version, 152, 157, and then GMRS, FRS 460 to 470. So 2 versions, a ham version, commercial version. Same thing with the roll-up, ham version and a commercial version. And by the way, it includes a 6-feet extension. Of course, like I showed, all the adapters, so you don't need anything to buy. The tri-band one I didn't talk about, but if you want it, it's $65, 2 meters, 220, 70 centimeters. It includes the PVC pipe. We have to ship it with the PVC pipe. And then extensions, 6 feet there if you want them extra, $5. And an extra adapter, which is the BNC to PL 259, 250. And of course, the radio I just mentioned, $65. But I'll send Wayne a spreadsheet you can distribute to you guys, and there's no rush. We're plenty busy. We with this antenna stuff, we've got a lot of good government contracts out here, surprisingly, because our antennas are pretty reliable. I would put them up against any commercial folks, and plus it goes to a pretty good cause. Okay, it is over 1 hour. So anyway, thanks a lot for your time on a Saturday morning. I'm amazed you guys get all these folks on a Saturday morning, and it's I guess lunchtime there. You guys can go have lunch, and I can go have breakfast. How's that? So you guys can email.
Thank you,
call
Ed.
me.
I definitely want one of your radios, Dr. Fong.
Yeah, and I've got my phone number. With COVID, I'm home most of the time. It does not look like we're going to open up back up the campus. It's just too frightening every time we open up with this Delta virus. How's the Delta over at your place? Is it
terrible?
Going rampant?
Yes.
Terrible, right? It's like, they kind of I think forced the state to open back up, just the pressure. Oh, we were doing fine in July.
Yep.
Do you see what's going to open back up? We were down to 0.2% infection rate. I go, if we continue this, we're home free. Now we're not home free. Our infection rate is up.
We appreciate you joining us today, Ed. We're running a little bit long, but I'll look forward to getting that sheet from you, and then we'll pass it along to anybody that wants to order some.
Yeah, you betcha. Hey, there's no rush. There's no rush. We've just lately, because I guess COVID or whatever, we get a lot of orders. So anyway, you guys go have lunch or whatever, and it's been nice enjoying you. Just stay safe. That's all I can say.
All right, thank you, sir.
I've had friends die, and it's
appreciate it, sir.
You're going to give your phone number?
Oh yeah, I'm going to have the phone number when it gets the spreadsheet. Yeah, again, during the week. Feel free to call me. School's not starting.
Yeah, anybody interested, they can drop me a line at kkk5io@aorl.net.
Yes, we'll be filling out that spreadsheet shortly.
Sure. Okay, you guys have a good day.
Right,
thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to
cow,
wrap
that was
this up
great.
so that we can get out for the siren net. We do have one more item of business I want to take care of. Look like we lost part of our crowd. We have a couple of members that transitioned to silent key. We want to have a moment of silence for our silent keys, W7BWY and AF5TU. So let's have a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you for that. We wish them, we'll miss them. So at that point, we're running a little bit long, so we're going to wrap it up. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
Wayne.
Hang on just a second, Peter. Okay, Rodney's got hats. If anybody wants hats. Okay, so get a hold of Rodney if you want some hats. Go ahead, Peter.
$1,828.72 since we started getting the Amazon money in 2009.
Awesome.
So thank you everybody that's helped with that.
Wayne, what was your email address again?
It's kk5io@arl.net. Okay.
This Tuesday evening on the 17th, I'm going to be giving a little brief demonstration about ham radio to my local Boy Scouts.
Okay, hang on just a second. I want everybody to hear this.
Tuesday evening, the 17th, I'm going to be giving a little demonstration about ham radio to the local Boy Scouts troop at St. Andrew's Catholic Church in Moore. If there is enough interest generated, does the club have an instructor that would be able to teach the technician class for them? So then I can just get with you and have you get in touch with them and then make arrangements on how to do everything.
Work something out. Yep.
Great. That's what I wanted to find out. Thank you.
New
Awesome.
hams. Yay.
Awesome. We'll go with the new hams. Okay, at this time, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 11:44. Thank you all for showing.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Seven three, guys. We'll catch you probably Tuesday night.
Hey, Mark, are you still there? I guess he's.
Oh, real quick, I've got some HRL catalogs up here that was sent to me. Y'all can have them if you want a catalog.
Mark Klein.
I think they turned off their.
Yeah, I think he turned it off too. Control freaks.
So KK5IO is who we need to contact to get that spreadsheet.
Yeah, KK5IO at ARRL.net.
Okay, so he's the one that's got he's going to get the spreadsheet from Ed.
Right.
Okay, good. And then who's Rodney and what hats were they talking about?
Do what now?
Sorry, my voice is messed up because that innovation tube. Who's Rodney and what hats were they talking about?
Rodney was back in the back, and it's the club hat that has the club logo on it.
Okay, because I just signed up and paid my dues.
Yep, he will have them. I think they're $15.
Okay, he'll be in the roster, so I can look him up that way probably.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lee. You have a great day.
You bet. You take care.
Glad you're feeling better.
Me too. Hope you are as well.
All right. 7-3.
All right. Bye-bye. Mark, are you there yet? Well, I got out yesterday. Yeah, I'm out of the hospital. But can you catch, nope, but can you catch 16 for me? I would appreciate it greatly. Yeah. No, I had went into the cath lab Wednesday. I went into hospital Monday. But turn this radio down. Went in the hospital Monday, went to cath lab on Wednesday, and they let me out yesterday about middle afternoon. And I'm doing a lot better now than when I went in the hospital. A significantly amount better. I felt like I was circling the drain when I went in. So anyway, but yeah, if you would catch that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay. Okay. That's just fine with me right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All righty. Okay. Yep, that's what I'm doing. That is what I'm doing. All right, you too. Okay, well, thank you. I do. Thank you, Harold. Bye-bye. Hello, hello.
Yeah. Hey, Lee, what you got?
I wanted to find out if you had Dr. Fong's phone number so I could call him real quickly.
I do not. He's supposed to send it to Lee, Wayne, so I don't have that.
Okay,
It might be on his website. I don't know that.
Yeah, maybe. I just wanted to find out, and I'm going to try to be there Tuesday night, and I can try to take Monday night as well.
Well, send Wayne a message. He'll get one to you.
Okay.
He'll get you the message or the call sign or the telephone number.
Did you hear about Monday night and Tuesday night?
Boy, I can just barely hear you here. Go ahead.
Well, Monday night, I'll take the net.
Okay, good.
And Tuesday night, I'm going to try to be there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Don't push it.
Oh, but I need to build up some strength.
Got it, man. Good luck. Good to see you.
Well, I'm feeling a lot better than I was.
That's good to hear.
A lot better.
Talk Tuesday.
Okay. Take care.
See you, man. Thanks.
All right, bye.